Hello, listeners. Welcome to another great podcast. I'm Satavisa. The entire production flow of a good or a service to maximize quality, delivery, customer experience, and profitability is becoming more and more advanced with the help of leveraging AI and ML. To discuss more on this matter, today we have with us Siddhartha Niyogi, Managing Director of O9 Solutions India. Hello, Siddhartha. Welcome to Analytics Insight. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Satavisa. Great to be here.
Now, it will be great if you can give us a brief about O9 Solutions and its services.
Right. So O9 Solutions, we are a cloud-based AI and ML SaaS, that's software as a service solution provider. The company was founded in 2009 by Sanjeev Sidhu and Chakri Gotamukula. Sanjeev was the founder of a company called I2 Solutions, I2 Technologies, and a lot of people might be aware of that. It was one of the pioneers in the supply chain planning space. And so, in terms of our offerings, what we help businesses solve their supply chain problems, which means optimizing their supply chains, and as well as general planning and decision making. Software decisions. So, which means that our product portfolio includes such things as supply planning, demand planning and forecasting, sales and operations planning, which we call integrated business planning from an O9 perspective, and also into other areas of planning as well, such as revenue planning, P&L planning. And then in general, we like to call ourselves, or at least our software, as the digital brain of an enterprise, which means that it helps them, gather insights from data, right? And lately, we're also getting into areas such as sustainable supply chains, reducing waste, and all of that sort of thing, right? So O9 Solutions is headquartered in Dallas in the US, and but a lot of the O9 India is a pretty big part of it, and we'll come to that maybe later on at some point of time. The company has been growing pretty fast. Into 2021, for example, we grew about threefold compared to 2020. In fact, we've done pretty well during these COVID and these pandemic times. And the company is largely owned by the founders, but we've had two rounds of minor investment funding. We actually value it at with the latest funding, we were valued at about $2.7 billion. Our investors include KKR, General Atlantic, Generation Investment Management, etc. So that's in brief O9 Solutions.
That sounds great. Now, what is your opinion about what kinds of growth opportunities O9 Solutions have in India?
Yeah, in terms of our overall global portfolio, India is still somewhat small because we have a pretty big portfolio, but India is a huge growth area for us, right? So we started with Asian Paints as one of our first customers way back in 2015, and since we've been adding at a steady pace. We are almost at almost double-digit numbers right now, and our clients include companies like Madura Berger Paints, Tata Wires, and so on and so forth. But it's really the forward growth story that we are very, very interested in, right? India, and there have been multiple things happening, right? Post-pandemic, there's been obviously a demand side uptick, and so such things as demand sensing, AIML, all these start to play a big role, and companies are very interested in using these technologies. And then additionally, supply side wise, the pandemic, most companies in India are heavy commodity importers, right? Most of the raw materials really come from outside. And there's been a lot of supply chain disruptions happening in the COVID phase. So all of this has led to a lot of focus on digitization, automation, then having the ability to do quick and fast scenario planning. So in general, that's why we've seen also an acceleration in customer acquisitions in the India market. But it's a bit bigger than that, right? We believe that India is going to be a manufacturing powerhouse, right? And then we want to actively work with industry at all levels, right? in terms of education and awareness of supply chain excellence through process, through software, right? We're actually working with some of the leading management institutions in India, right? And working with them on, for example, course content. We also intend to work with, through these institutions itself, work with SMEs, for example, and help build awareness about supply chain planning, right? In India right now, most companies still try to think in terms of IT spend, and it kind of starts and stops at ERP, and but that's really very, kind of done and dusted, right? At this point of time, uh, it's all about planning, predicting the future essentially, then planning everything, planning the next series of actions, making sure you're able to execute to your plans. And that's where our software uh, can help companies, and that's why we believe that there's a huge potential in the Indian market. But we don't see it as just something that's going to happen in the next year. It's really a 2 to 3 year uh, plan that we have, or at least a growth projection that we have on India.
That sounds fascinating. And now let's talk a little more about the situation in 2021. I'm really interested to know how O9 has achieved a record number of new customer wins, like as well as expansions with these existing customers in 2021 during the uncertain times that was imposed by the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, actually, in the beginning of the COVID, we were very worried about our growth prospects because obviously, with all the lockdowns and everything happening, we were thinking that businesses are going to get really severely impacted. So they did get impacted, but we also saw that that actually led to a general acceleration of digital transformation across the world, right? So India being part of it, and it was also seen outside. IT companies have been actually doing quite well, and we also saw that same focus, and our supply chain planning software was probably in the right place at the right time in that sense. So that's why we, as I said, in the last couple of years, we've really grown at a really fast pace. I just mentioned that we grew threefold in 2021 compared to the year before, right? So we have seen the benefits of that. The other aspects is that in general, supply chain planning software, there are a lot of, it runs in cycles, right? There's a lot of old software that is lying around that has come around for renewal. So again, we're seeing some of that in terms of our demand. Um, then O9, one aspect of our software is that we are not only providing products, we actually have a platform underneath it. And this platform is very flexible. So given the what happened in the pandemic times, right, all the changing situations, the ability, traditional software packages were found a bit wanting, right? Because people needed to have very flexible new calculations, new ways of doing scenario planning, and that's where we were positioned quite well as well. So we and maybe there were some other companies which also have platform-based software, kind of reap the benefits of that, right? So that's in terms of the market, and then the other aspect is in terms of our ability to feed that market, and we always had a very flexible work from home kind of culture even before the pandemic. So it was almost nothing for us to shift to the new normal that has come in, right? Where remote working and all that. So almost everything we were able to do remotely. Some of our customers, especially in India, were quite surprised. They never thought that they would be able to actually have a whole project run remotely. Of course, everyone is now used to that fact, but we managed to do it quite easily as well. So, and then as a SaaS provider, right, a lot of our consulting and services delivery that we do is provided from our India office for our global organization, right, which generally tends to happen in a remote fashion. So, all in all, then O9 was able to serve this growth very well that's happened outside.
That's amazing. Now, if you can give us some insights about how you are leveraging AI and ML solutions in your operations.
Yeah, so our planning software uses AI and ML as part of the sort of a very central part of the algorithmic set we use. We use other algorithms as well. We do a lot of optimization, etc. But specifically with respect to AI ML, one of the main areas we use it very extensively is demand forecasting, right? Traditional time series things are very have been around for a lot of years, and the new AIML techniques, more ML techniques, I would say, around taking events, drivers, leading indicators, etc., to sense your demand, to predict, to bring in all the variability that comes in because of different factors. So that's where we use AIML very extensively. But we also use it on the supply side planning as well. For example, a lot of it is used in data validation, right? Validating that the data that's coming is correct, correcting for it. Sometimes enterprises have a lot of data lying all over the place, and there's a lot of cleansing and cleaning and validating that happens. So our AIML techniques help us to do that. Then the other aspect is about just setting some of the data. To plan your supply chain, you need to um, set up a lot of parameters, etc. And a lot of these parameters can be derived from how the supply chain functions, right? And that's where again we use AIML to predict, for example, something like a lead time, which is a very important concept in planning. We just look at a lot of the transactional historic data, and a lot of it is just pure statistics, but then AIML is also used to lead it to further insights and so on and so forth, right? Then we have something called a control tower. The control tower is obviously it is like the control tower which you have in an airport, right? And so where you can sort of see all the data that's in front of you, and then you have to sort of predict something's going to happen, and then you take a resolution action. So that's also where we use a lot of AI and ML.
That sounds really interesting. Now, I would like to know about your opinion on how O9 is contributing in supporting global growth in India.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, our India center in terms of pure headcount is the largest worldwide. We are about 1,000 people right now in India, out of a 16 total of 1,600 people worldwide. So, and that said, the important thing is almost our entire R&D team, where the product development happens, is actually based out of India. Our chief architect is based out of India. We have a proprietary platform, right? In that we have created in-memory columnar databases and lots of other stuff, solvers and optimizers and all that. And all of that has been developed grounds up in India, okay? So we're quite different from a lot of IT companies out there. And in general, as I mentioned also, a lot of our consulting work, because we are a SaaS thing, right? Everything's in the cloud. It happens in India. So we have a pretty big consulting division where people are working on global projects. They are creating configurations for them. They're supporting them, running their systems for them, right? That's all largely done out of India, okay? So that's how we are helping or supporting the global growth from an India perspective. And we use a lot of the remote working, for all our activities, and using Zoom, Google Meets. We actually use a lot of SaaS software ourselves. We create SaaS software, and we use a lot of them to sort of aid all of this.
That sounds really great. And now I would like to know a little more about what is your hiring plans and what kind of employees you are focused on, like in India and also on a global basis.
Yeah. So in general, we're seeing a sort of doubling of growth, or at least that's our projection in general. So that we're also going to see somewhat, not exactly, but slightly less than a doubling of our size, and that includes India as well, right? So adding people across all functions, with probably a little bit more coming from the consulting divisions, which are a bit more people heavy, right? And globally also we're seeing that, because we're seeing projects all over. We have growth, especially beginning to kick in APAC region, in Japan, in Korea. We already always had traditional growth in Europe and the Americas and all that, right? So we already have a lot of teams there. We have teams growing in Amsterdam, in Seoul, in Tokyo, and that's from a global perspective. Now, in terms of people, initiatives, this rate of growth is obviously pretty fast, because we're doubling every year. And we've always been a very data-driven enterprise. So we always used to run surveys and all that sort of stuff before. So we continue to do that. From these surveys, we keep monitoring the health of our people engagement. For example, this year or this last year, we did initiatives for rewards and recognitions. Also, a lot of learning, because supply chain is a very niche area. It's not something you get people trained out of college, or not many people, even in industry, who probably know supply chain that well. So we have to create a lot of courses. We use Coursera internal. We have an internal learning management system. We have an internal education services system, which churns out a lot of courses about supply chain. Not only using the software, but concepts of supply chain, best practices in supply chain. One of the reasons why we're working with these management institutes like IIMs and to build courses alongside with them. Then in general, from our employee things, because in the pandemic we had to do a lot, right? Especially when the Delta wave had hit us, we had set up actually a war room. We had actually imported oxygen concentrators because of the kind of the oxygen shortages that we were seeing. We had sponsored vaccination drives very early on. Uh, then we handed out COVID kits. We continue to hand out COVID kits even now. Um, the work from home allowances, we set those up during COVID. So we were doing a lot during this pandemic, and most companies have done that. I'm not saying we're doing something very special in that sense, but we have been doing those. And then throughout that period, we've also had a very active HR team who's been working on engagement activities, like book clubs, art sessions, talks from industry experts. We have health apps, health and wellness apps as well. We have this visit app that we use inside our company. A lot of talks on that as well. So that's a lot of the stuff we are doing globally. And going forward, we would continue to continue that. Of course, post COVID, we would also like to get people back into face-to-face situations. We believe ultimately, as human beings, that's how we function best, right? We have a good, more in a collaborative sense, right? To get them in, that's where we feel that it's most efficient. But we'll always continue to be flexible about hybrid work and hybrid, in terms of remote work, supporting hybrid work environments, as we've done before. Even pre-pandemic, we used to do that. So that won't change. It's just that we went completely remote during the pandemic, and we'd like to now get people back meeting each other. We were even thinking of opening up multiple centers in India right now, given that most of our people are really distributed all over the country.
It's really interesting. You people have done a great job. Now, lastly, I want to know what are your future plans for O9 Solutions?
Yeah, it's really continuing in the same areas, same growth areas as we said, right? So we have our core areas, which is demand forecasting, demand planning, supply planning optimization, and then S&OP, right? And which we call integrated business planning. So these continue to be our core areas, and we continue to expand in terms of customers, getting new customers on board our system, expanding in the existing customers. And while we also growing new areas of products, especially in the areas of revenue management, in procurement, we also want to go very deep into procurement, and then expanding the concept of the digital brain, because the digital brain, the idea is that you have, like your brain works, our software will also be the brain of the organization. All the data is flowing in through sensors, and then you're kind of processing it to generate insights and actions, right? So digital brain will be definitely a strategic area where we'll be doing a lot of work, where especially AI and ML plays a big part. And in addition, especially from this year onwards, we've been starting to also focus on sustainable supply chains, with all the climate change that's happening across the board. We have an annual event that's held every year. It's called AIM 10X Global. This year it's going to be held between April 5th and 7th. And we're actually going to get Al Gore. Al Gore is a big, ardent, supporter of, controlling climate change and having a sustainable environment. So he's going to be a keynote speaker, by the way, in our AIM 10X global event this year.
That sounds amazing. I'm sure this is definitely going to help all of our listeners too. Thank you, Siddhartha, for joining us today. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I'm also looking forward to see many more innovative solutions coming from your end.
Thanks a lot, Satavisa. It was great talking to you. Great being here. Thanks for having us.